Welcome back to Uprise Astrology, friends. We are going to be taking a look at the full moon in Aries. I am going to just go ahead and pop the chart up. We're going to dive right into what is happening. If you're in the chat live with me, welcome. I want to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? Let me know. Drop a comment in the chat right now. Let me know how the astrology is unfolding for you. Are you using astrology? Are you new to astrology? Anything that you want to share with me, drop it in the comment section. I am going to go ahead and share my screen here with the chart. So let's go ahead and pop that up. All right. You should be able to see the chart. This is the full moon in Aries. Now, everything I'm giving you, all the times that I'm giving you, it is for Eastern Standard Time. I am here in Florida, so we're going to be covering how and where this full moon is unfolding here. So October 9th, today, the moon is going to be coming to its full version, its most pregnant version at 4:54 p.m. So what you guys see on the chart here is that this full moon is unfolding at 16 degrees. So the moon is at 16 degrees. The sun is at 16 degrees. And let's dive into what 16 degrees really is all about. So 16, the number 16 has a lot to do with what is happening right now in our day-to-day. Okay. In the present moment, dealing with yourself. That's the number one thing that you are taking a look at when you're taking a look at 16. Now, the 6 within the 1, it's a number that has a lot to do with receiving, being able to receive. Okay. So there's a sense of you dealing with yourself and your receptive mode. So right now, a lot of us could be dealing with ourselves in the day-to-day where we're starting to notice what we're closed off to and why we're closed off to it. Are we able to receive our relationships and the love within the relationships the way that we envisioned it to be? And what is the blockage in that? Whenever we have a full moon happening, this is when the sun and the moon is in an opposition. If you're new to astrology, I like to give a couple of different, backgrounds as to what we're taking a look at, because sometimes astrology can be so overwhelming. I don't know about you guys, but like when I first got into astrology, it was just sort of like, wow, it's a lot going on. And there's still a lot of people out there that are actually new to astrology. So if you're new, the full moon is a time when we're dealing with an opposition between the sun, our vitality, our energy, and also the awareness that we're holding at this very present time, to the moon, that opposition. That is us being in a reflective mode, but also anything that we are currently dealing with in our emotional realm. So that's what those two represent. And when they come into an opposition, we have a breakdown. Okay. Most of the time, whenever we're apexing to a full moon, you can start to notice like a full moon is on the way, because people get a little bit frustrated. They get a little bit intense. There's some intensity behind it. And so with this particular full moon in Aries, that intensity, that breakdown has a lot to do with us being in this place where we're starting to realize that, something is off, something needs to change. And it has to do with who I am at this time, because you're dealing with yourself. The 1 and the 16 has to do with you dealing with yourself. The 1 is you. It is the identity, the person that you are, the persona that you are. And the 6 with it has a lot to do with a receptive mode. So what do I mean by that? Well, 16 has a lot to do with like you taking a look at what you're comfortable with and what you're uncomfortable with. And oftentimes it also has to do with you just realizing that you have certain desires that may have not been fulfilled. Now, why do I say may have not been fulfilled? Because at the time of this full moon, because we're taking a look at this opposition This has a lot to do with the breakdown of what hasn't been done in your life or what you're desiring. And there is a certain truth that comes up. There's something that is so very personal to you. It is so important to you. And the truth behind it is that you start to realize, oh, yeah, like this is the thing that I really want. This is the thing I really desire. I haven't made the necessary decisions in order to really, make this happen, because Aries is a sign that is pure thought. It gets inspiration and acts on it. It is a time when we're starting to realize that, hey, I need to I need to become a little bit more courageous. I need to make something happen. I need to like go about this and just make it happen. And sometimes around a Aries full moon, we can deal with a sense of frustration around that. And that is what we're seeing with this particular full moon right over here, because not only is the sun in an opposition with this moon, but there is other things that are unfolding. So the sun is conjunct Venus. They're starting to come closer together. They will come actually exact towards the end of the month. And so the sun and Venus together, this is a time when we are focusing on warmth, and we're focusing on everything that is sort of friendly in nature. We're looking for the warmth. We're looking for the friendliness within people. We're looking for some kind of radiance. Okay. And it comes sort of into our periphery, into our awareness, that we're looking for those things right now. We're looking for where things feel good, not only within relationships, but also just in general, like anything that has to do in our day to day. Like, is this making me feel good? Is it not making me feel good? That's the sun and Venus together. It's also a good time. It's a time of socializing. It's a time of play. But because we have a full moon, that full moon is taking a look not only at the moon, but the moon is conjunct Chiron at 14 degrees in Aries. This 14 degrees in Aries, this opposition between Venus and Chiron will actually become exact the next day. So that's going to be tomorrow. It's going to be at 14 degrees. So what are we working through with this? Well, we're looking for the warmth, we're looking for the vitality, but then there is a part of us that bumps up against triggers. There are triggers, and this has to do with who we are at this time and who we are desiring to be. There's a part of us that starts to realize, okay, I'll give you an example. Maybe you are in this place right now where you're working on your health, and a part of you gets just naturally triggered right now because you are realizing that there's other people there. The sun in Libra, Venus in Libra, they are living their life so different, and there is a sense of happiness behind what it is that they're doing, and your observation of that, you're in this trigger because you realize that that's not where you're at. So we can get caught up right now in this storyline over the next couple of days where we're comparing ourselves. We're in this place where we start to realize, yeah, that's what I desire. I want to make that happen. I am not quite there yet. And these triggers I'm talking about, they're from Chiron. They're Chiron and Aries. It's about who you are at this time and what you have put together as far as your persona, your character, your strategy plan, just a person you are, right? Something that you're taking a look at. You're examining this under this particular, full moon in Aries. And that is the intention of the planets right now, is for us to take a look at who we are being, and where we are getting caught up in, couple of examples, comparison, comparing yourself to another person, just going, their life must be better than mine, which we don't know. We can operate based on assumption. Another part of us could feel like we are moving too slow. Things are going too slow in our lives. We are looking at this other person who is in a beautiful relationship, and so we think that they're in a beautiful relationship, and I want to be in a relationship and I haven't gotten there yet, and why am I not there yet? That's that moon and Chiron conjunction. And so we're putting sort of a investigation together and an inventory. This is a pit stop right here, right before we go into the eclipse season. It's a pit stop of like, yeah, where am I at? Where am I taking my life? But this one is a bit more intense. And this October going to give us a preview into what the choices you're making at this time are going to impact in 2023. Why am I saying that? Because the ruler of this particular full moon, Mars, when we're taking a look at Mars, Mars and Neptune are starting to come into a square. Let's just take a look at where Mars is at right now. Mars is in Gemini. Mars has entered Gemini August 20th. It's going to stay here until March of 2023. It's a long time. This is not the norm. And the reason why this is not the norm, we're going to dive a little bit more into this. This Mars in Gemini is going to bring all of the actions that you're trying to take but haven't, made happen yet. It's going to try to drive those actions out of you, those ideas, those thoughts, especially mindsets that when you actually start to live them out, you're going to start to realize maybe that's not what you wanted to do. Maybe that's not what you wanted to create, but you actually have to go do it in order to understand what you were actually trying to change. Some of us with this Mars in Gemini right now are in a place where we still haven't really taken action. We haven't maybe made the move towards the things that we really want to do. And part of it is because there's some fears attached to what would happen if we were to do it, or maybe not even knowing what we should be doing. So this Mars in Gemini is giving us 7 months of just doing it, going out there, taking the action, and letting our thoughts actually be out in the open in form of action. So we're going to live out what it is that we're thinking about, what it is that we're, having desires about, and the ideas around all of that. And some of those things are going to stick, and some of those things are not going to stick. Some of that action that you might be taking over the next several months, you will start to notice like that was a great idea and concept, but it doesn't have a backbone. It's not something that is you. It's not a version of you. But the only way that you can learn is to understand the polarities between those things, the contrast between what's part of you, what you're comfortable with, and what you're not comfortable with. So this is the beginning stage here, because this particular Mars is at 22 at the time of this full moon. And so what it's doing at 22 is it's letting you know that it's time for you to draw the line and to actually make a decision. And it has a lot to do with quality, the quality in your life and the quality of your life that you're experiencing right now, the value that you are putting to things versus the quantity of it. 22 is a very big number. 22 has a lot to do with you and other people, and you and this, group of people. There's a lot of relationships involved in here. There's a lot of emotions involved in here, where there's a lot of reflecting going on, a lot of mirroring going on at 22. So Mars in Gemini, it's your thoughts and your speech and everything that you're thinking about that you're going to start to speak about, or perhaps write about, or you're going to start to take action on it because you feel that there's a level of impatience here. 22 says, you know what? We're going to have to go make it happen. And in order to build something new, I might have to actually be a little bit rebellious. I might have to go up against my very own norm, the very own thing that I'm trying to, come out of, because I am bored here. This is not who I am. This is not what I want to do. XYZ, whatever you're telling yourself, right? Because that's where the moon is at with Chiron conjunct. This is a part of you that starting to realize, you can't maybe sit here forever. If you want that relationship, you're going to have to start taking action. If you want more money, you're actually going to start to, you have to start making that happen by maybe applying for that job, by, doing that thing at work that you're afraid to do, maybe asking for a promotion. These are the types of things that we're starting to build up to over the next 2 weeks before the eclipse season begins. So Mars is at 22, just letting us know, okay, I know that I'm in this place, doesn't feel good, a little bit triggery. I am vulnerable at some level because I have to take a look at the parts of myself that aren't fulfilled. And we're going to take a look at that in today's report for each of you, what that actually looks like. And then there is this weird sort of square happening between Mars and Neptune. Talked about that in the individual horoscopes. Make sure that you watch your individual horoscopes or you listen to the podcast version of it. And so that Mars Neptune square, that is leading us into this next week, which is all about overcoming a part of us that, just kind of doesn't hold enough space and enough sort of autonomy, I would say, with our own intuition, with our own truth. Where are you overlooking parts of yourself that you feel like that, you always like it's speaking to you? It's that thing that says to you, do it this way, but you don't because there's a fear attached to it. That Mars Neptune square is going to bring you into that conversation. The other conversation that Neptune is bringing up here, because we're talking about triggers, we're talking about that part of you that you may not like necessarily so much. You might come and run into some old situations or experiences that you've had that you disliked, and somehow they're circling back around. Now, it could be that it's coming back around. So, like maybe with a relationship that, you have sort of an incomplete sort of relationship dynamic, or it is a new relationship or other people in your life that kind of represent that same energy that you're trying to kind of overcome or let go, or maybe even heal more of that. These are types of things that we're going to start to work on as we head into this week. That Mars Neptune square is super important to pay attention to. The third thing I mentioned, actually, in all the individual horoscopes for you guys and where this is happening for you, that Mars Neptune square can be a weird energy. There's a strange feeling in the air. There's something that feels off. Of course, Mars is starting to become, slower and slower because it's going to go retrograde. And so for you guys right now, what you want to pay attention to is people around you that are in your relationship, field, whether that's in acquaintances or close relationships, where you may have to pay attention to people's intentions. Okay. Where are they coming from? Perhaps there's something that you notice about them that you would never notice before. Not that they're bad people, but something comes up here where you start to realize, wow, that person is really on a struggle bus. And all this time I thought that, they were out to get me, or they were out to do something. Or you could, in the extreme version of this Mars Neptune square, you could be experiencing people who are, having a sudden change in their intention and it's twisted. So you want to pay attention to this. You want to pay attention to relationship dynamics right now a lot, and how and what they mirror back to you, because that's going to be your gold. That's going to be your gold before you go into this eclipse at the end of the month. The gold is identifying what it is that you're trying to change in your life, what it is that you are, wanting to overcome, because this Aries full moon is all about overcoming where you're not following your own path, where you're not following your own lead. Because Aries is that part of our chart that represents, hey, get up and go, make this thing happen. And yeah, you might have to do it on your own. You might actually have to let this feeling go inside of relationships, like everything is hunky dory because a part of you wants to overcome something. So you may have to do this thing that all this time you have avoided. So this is sort of like your opportunity to do it, to go out there, to follow your own sort of path, your own thoughts, your own ideas. And so a new sort of time is being born out of this, because everything that you're going to do over the next 2 weeks is going to impact 2023. Now, number 16, or the degree 16, has a lot to do with your own truth. It has to do with being able to understand what it is that is deeply within you, the truest version of yourself, but also being able to live out that truth when there is sudden, unexpected changes. When we add up that 1 and 6, it comes to a 7. That 7 is a representation of sudden changes that could occur over the next 2 weeks. It's like a sudden inspiration or a sudden change, a sudden insight that you get, or simply you suddenly changing the way in which you were viewing a part of yourself that used to get so triggered by all these, themes I just mentioned. The way that it comes through is through relationships and what's being mirrored back to you. So we talked about that aspect. Let's talk about where Jupiter is at. Jupiter right now is also at 1 degree Aries. This is going to be a time, I think, when a lot of us start to begin to realize that, you are really working on yourself right now, and who you are becoming at this time will shape into next year. Not that you don't know who you are, right? As like you have no clue, but there's a particular aspect of your life you're trying to maybe expand, trying to really take a look at and develop. And right now, this is going to be in your periphery, especially over the next, 2 weeks, because everything that you're working on is an opportunity for you to better yourself and to develop and expand and go a little bit deeper into what it is that you're trying to master and strengthen at this time. Now, the other thing I do want to mention is that Saturn Uranus square, it's been going on for a while. We've been in this conversation. There's a very important moment between now and also November. This is going to go well into November as well, where we begin to realize that there's nothing we can do about certain things in our life. We have to put the effort in. Okay. Saturn is all about effort. Saturn is all about responsibility. That Saturn Uranus square coming together and holding down around 18 degrees is you realizing you can't quite take a shortcut to where you're trying to get to. You have to put the work in. There's no other way to do it. And that is what the Saturn, Uranus square is all about, because Saturn is in Aquarius saying, I get that this is what you want to do, but you got to detach from emotional things that used to keep you from doing the work. Like you can't quite talk yourself and sabotage your way out of it. And that's that square to Uranus saying, if you want to reach a little bit higher, you got to put the work in on the ground. Okay. You cannot think your way to it. It's not a concept. You have to actually do the work. So again, another example I want to give is because it's Libra season. If you're trying to be in a relationship, then, you may have to explore some dating apps, or, if you're trying to be in a relationship with somebody, you may have to take that leap of faith and, approach this person, or find somebody that could coach you in how to, maybe be in relationships, or find a relationship coach, something like this. I'm just making up some examples. This is something that we're going to get into the conversation with, because the real work actually looks and feels so entirely different. That's that Saturn and Uranus square, Uranus being not in its most favorable position in Taurus. This is us saying, okay, yeah, it actually feels very different when I put the work in, when I take a look at the stuff that I'm desiring. It's no longer this concept, this far away thing that I think I cannot obtain, that I'm observing in all these other people, which oftentimes is just you putting another person up on a pedestal, you putting another story up on a pedestal. And it's like, is that really what your entire life would be about? If you got to that feeling, you now have to master how to hold that feeling. Oftentimes we think, and this is what the message of this particular full moon and the next 2 weeks is going to be about. Oftentimes we think, like, if we get to that thing, if we have more money, or if we have that feeling of joy by being in a relationship, we attach these values to the areas of our life that we realize, okay, once you get there, like let's say you get there, you got to that point, well, you got to maintain it. You now need to master some other thing about that. You're not always going to stay in love with that situation. You're not always going to stay in joy with that situation, because we as human beings aren't wired that way. And how do you actually master that? Well, the way you master it, and which is what the message of this full moon is, you can't think about, you know, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, right now. You actually have to think about right now what you need to do. Where can you find appreciation for the right now? Where do you need to figure out how the right now feels good? Because if the right now doesn't feel good, then are you going to ever feel good once you get to that, once you're chasing that feeling, which is going to be the big lesson of this Mars in Gemini. This Mars in Gemini is chasing a feeling. Sometimes it's chasing a feeling by instigating other people, and this will be something we're going to run into. But over the next 2 weeks, this Mars in Gemini situation is going to teach us that you may have to actually revise how you are viewing your ambition, because the ambition that you have, and there's stuff that's going to come up, you guys. There's going to be challenges with this Mars in Gemini. And this Mars in Gemini challenge is going to be, my version of what I think is right, and then your version of what I think is right. And then those two worlds just coming together, and more information coming up that you didn't consider before, you didn't take a look at before. Some of it will have to do with relationship. A lot of it will have to do with money. Then it will have to do with, just the way in which you are governing over yourself. Okay. If we go through the seasons, by the time we reach January, this particular New Year's beginning is going to feel so entirely different than maybe all other New Year's beginning, because we start to realize we have a lot more work to put in within ourselves. Like if we are wanting to really live in a world where people are getting along, or I'm getting along and I'm hitting my goals, I'm going to have to start to view myself and do the work on myself so that I can get to a place where I'm a lot more genuine. But at first, this Mars retrograde, Mars in Gemini, starts out on a note of like, I don't care. I'm just going to go ahead and, say that thing that I didn't say. And part of it will have to play out. A lot of this stuff will have to play out because we have to run into challenges to see the polarity of things. We have to run into challenges to see the contrast of where we're. So the next 2 weeks is a good time for you to work out where your triggers are at. Not to only stick to the things that are working, because the things that are working in your life, you already got them figured out. What are the things that are not working in your life? Where do you have to put a little bit more bravery in to deal with those things? And that is what this particular full moon is asking about. And also that Saturn Uranus square is going to be all about you now expanding your horizon of what you actually need to do. If you want to up level, how in any of the houses where this is at, right? Look at where Uranus is at in your houses. If you want to up level, you're going to have to put some work in there. And the way that you put the work in is paying attention to what Saturn is communicating right now. Saturn is in a place saying the intention has to be in the action. You have to make a decision. And it's better to make a decision and to take the action than to resent yourself and you never took the action. Okay. That is what I'm seeing with this particular full moon in Aries. When we go into eclipse season, we're going to cover what this eclipse season is going to signify. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a preview. This particular eclipse season, this is going to be all about, defining your needs at a root level. And we're going to see some power dynamics play out on a personal level, on a collective level. Especially because that Mars in Gemini is going to be there. It might just be one of the biggest, let's just say it the way it is, might be one of the biggest like shit shows we've ever experienced, especially in politics with that Mars in Gemini, because you're going to see so much information that's going to come up and things that are so, you had not thought about anything like that before in your life, or you didn't think it would be possible. You didn't think that people could do certain things, or we're capable of doing certain things. So you're going to see that, you're going to hear it. That's sort of like the preview. Okay. Scorpionic energy has to do with showing us what some people have not worked on at root levels. Okay. So you're going to see some boundary crossing here over the course of this eclipse season that you didn't think about. So a lot of us are going to be looking for safety. A lot of us are going to be looking to feel safe and what that actually looks like and to protect our life in a particular way. So this might come up. Okay. If you're in the chat, say hi, drop in a comment, let me know how the energies are playing out. If any of this is resonating with you, let me know. I love to hear from you guys. So I am going to focus on the next couple of things. I think we covered everything we needed to cover with this particular full moon in Aries. If you are coming in just now into the chat, make sure you go back and you rewatch everything because I just kind of covered a lot. And so, yeah, if you're here for the first time on my channel, welcome. My name is Aylin Sky. I'm an astrologer and numerologist. I focus a lot on the astrology coupled with the degrees. This is something I'm super passionate about. This is why I'm here. I am excited that you're here. If you like forecasts and kind of knowing what the immediate future brings to you, then this might be your channel to hang out. I focus a lot on individual horoscopes to kind of give you a little bit of a heads up on what is happening with the energies, where it's happening, how to prepare for them. And I would love for you to hang out with me, subscribe, ring the bell, and yeah, let's hang out. So next thing I'm going to do is we are going to be focusing on a collective reading. I have this really beautiful deck called the Universe Illusion. I think that's how you pronounce it. And I already shuffled these cards and I saw 2 cards that fell out. I haven't given much thought. We're just going to do it right now. First card that fell out, we see a path with a book right in front of it. And there's sort of which looks almost like a cutout, key that could fit through that. And what we're seeing in this card is someone standing right in front of that giant book. And what this represents for me, for many of us right now, is that we are quite literally going to enter a new chapter in our life. And this will also have to do with Pluto being direct. Pluto is now direct, you guys. Saturn is going to come direct. This will have to do with us having the faith to step into a part of our life that has to do with gaining more knowledge. This book represents gaining more knowledge, and it couldn't be more on point because of Mars and Gemini. Mars and Gemini, that's an intellectual energy. That's a thought-driven energy. That's a knowledge energy. So I talked about where Mars and Gemini is at right now because we're going to be dealing with a lot of, conversations and information that comes out. But also for a lot of us, it will have to do with the knowledge that we're gaining. What are we going to do with it? Are we going to, take this knowledge, or are we going to use our intelligence in a way where it moves us forward and it quite literally moves us through the path onto another side? And what is that on this other side? We can't quite know, because life right now is not wired that way. You have to have faith. You have to have faith in what is unfolding right now. You need to trust what is being given to you at this time so that you can take that, turn that into knowledge, turn that into wisdom, turn that into something really empowering, and walk through onto the other side. And if you don't take that leap of faith, right, then who is going to? The next card that we see is a ceiling with a bunch of lights, twinkle lights, and it has Polaroid pictures on there. And on the pictures are moments captured that are important. And what we see in this card is that all the memories that we have built so far, okay, they are just now memories. Like, we are to draw the line and to begin again. This is the bold invitation of the universal sort of energy now. It's about us moving through, taking knowledge this way, taking the knowledge, moving on to the other side, trusting what lies ahead, knowing that, we have everything we need right now. And perhaps there are some things that we need to gain a knowledge of, and staying open to it, and then walking through that moment where we gain that knowledge onto the other side. Okay. Trusting ourselves is going to be huge here. And then we see the other card, that has a lot to do the other way around, that has a lot to do with us just knowing that everything we're doing in life is about building a memory. That's all we have. Okay. It's those moments that matter the most that we capture that really are important. And while we are in this place of transition, while we are in this place of moving on to the other side, we can still create good memories. We can still be in a place where we're enjoying our life. That's what I see with this other card, you know? This is a moment where people come together, things come together, and you take inventory of the things in your life that make you feel the best. I don't know about you, but like whenever I'm around like certain places where they have like they capture those Polaroid, pictures, especially those mini ones. I don't know if you've seen those before. That's about like the happy times, that's about us snapping a picture and then pinning it up onto the wall, which is what we see here in this image. This image has to do with the good times in our life that we need to cherish. We have to hold on to those more than we ever have because of the information that's coming. Okay. The information that's coming over the next several months are going to be on a personal and on a collective level. Sometimes it's going to be more on the collective level because of the degrees in which Mars is going to transit through. This will be challenging. This will be information that will challenge your very own ambition and also, socially where you're standing. Okay. This will have to do with that. There might also be a lot of changes in law wherever you're living or things that are changing that have to do with rules and regulations and policies, which is what Mars and Gemini can be all about. And so more than ever, do we have to hold on to the good times right now, the things and the people in our life that create a very good feeling and that warmth that we're looking for, which is what that Sun in Venus conjunction is all about. And when they come into a cazimi at the end of the month, this is when they're going to show us, the Sun and Venus, they're showing us like that moment that when our life is fully self-expressed, there is a moment of mastery. There's a moment of like, aha, this is what it feels like. But now I got to go make that happen. I got to protect that thing. I have to protect this thing that I'm after, that I'm wanting more of. And I want to make that more a part of my life. Well, there are some protections that are necessary. Something that you have to, really move through right now in your life and feel it so that you can understand what it takes to really make that thing happen. Okay. So that's what I'm seeing here. All right. I'm just going to check and see if anybody is chatting. All right. Let's move to the chart again. I want to pop up the chart. We are going to let's start with Pisces. Since the ascendant is on Pisces, what I'm going to do is I am going to be focusing where the moon and Chiron is for you guys in the houses. And then I am going to draw from my play deck, just regular card playing deck. This is a system that is called Cards of Truth. The Cards of Truth system I learned with Nicole Brenny. If you're ever interested in learning this system, she is here. Go check her out, Nicole Brenny. Now, we are going to focus on Pisces. Now, Pisces, this full moon is heavily focusing on your commitments. But most importantly, it is focusing for you guys right now on money matters. Okay. A lot of you could be experiencing truths around money. This money situation kind of has an echo to the past of people overpowering you. Perhaps you not being able to make the decisions that you wanted to make in the past that will sort of be echoed right now or mirrored right now in the present moment, especially over the next 2 weeks. Money matters have to get sorted out. And what is coming up for you right now? Let's take a look. What's coming up for you right now is that you need to take the time to think about what your ideas are. What is it that this has to also do with self-indulgence, something about self-indulgence or indulgence in general or luxury items in your life that you may have to rethink, or something about that. You have to rethink. I see two scenarios because it's not going to be the same for everybody. Two scenarios here. On one level, okay, some of you are going to be dealing with, you actually want more luxury in your life, but there is a part of you that remembers that you may be thinking of yourself as someone who can never get there because of whatever background, okay, you have experienced. And it has to do with other people overpowering you. Okay. And then you felt like this is the story. You're now gaining around it. You're gaining awareness around what you need to let go of. Okay. In order to, within you, in order to move forward and know that a part of you can create value for yourself. That's huge. Now, the others in the Pisces rising realm that deal with this, you might be taking a look at, you might have too much of something, and you start to begin to see that as well. You might have too much of something. You might feel that there is a part of you that is sort of like, feels a little bit triggered that you might not do the things with your money you should be doing, or that you're saying to yourself that you should be doing that. You should be maybe involving by setting up that nonprofit or doing something that has to do with feeling like that's not always about certain people in your life, including yourself, that it also goes beyond. There's a part of you that wants to kind of break free of that. Okay. There could be two scenarios here. So that's what I'm seeing for Pisces and Pisces rising. Let's move on to, we're going to go forward. We're going to go to Aries. This is happening in your first house, Aries rising. By the way, if you're listening to your rising sign, it's going to correspond more with your rising than it is with your sun sign, but you are more than welcome. Sometimes the messages that I'm giving will resonate also with your sun and moon. You're more than welcome to put that bigger reading together. Okay, so Aries, first house. This is your time of focusing on your image. And your image is more important than ever. And there is a part of you that feels maybe you've always been seen in a certain light, and it comes up now. And this light has to do with, you can only be seen as someone who leads the way in a way, who gets to places first, but you're wanting more depth with your experience and the world in general. You're wanting more depth, and you're wanting more of a connection with particular relations, especially. And right now, you have to take a risk because you realize that you're at this time where you're at, you're out of your comfort zone. You're not in a place that you are hoping to be. You're not in a place that, is kind of allowing for yourself to feel more courageous and brave, but also be seen in a particular way. This has a lot to do with your thoughts and how you're sharing. Okay. This has a lot to do with what it is that you're sharing with people about yourself. A part of you might feel like you're not sharing in a way that, I don't want to say honest, that's not what it is, but you are sort of inside of a particular bubble, and you are trying to break out of this bubble. And this bubble has to do with if you think about some of the most impactful relationships that you've had in your life, what were they? And who were those people? And what were the things that they said to you that you remember the most about you? So whatever that is, you're inside that bubble. You said to yourself, this is all I can ever do. You're gaining awareness around it. And so now that you're gaining awareness around it, it's a time for you to do maybe the opposite, a little bit of understanding what that is and how would people like to view you. Maybe 3 keywords. Okay. If it was, brave, straight, forward, and maybe, I don't know, unique. If those were the words, you replace them with something else and you test drive them over the next 2 weeks. This is a brilliant time to do it. Okay. This is a time for you to not be comfortable at all, to step out of your comfort zone, because the other side of this, the promise is that you are going to make some headway in understanding where you limit yourself, especially. Some of you, this will also have to do with your looks, the way in which you look. You might also realize that some people view you as self-centered. Why is that? Are there relationships that say that to you? This might be something that might come up here as well. And you're breaking away from that. Again, there's many different scenarios, but it definitely has to do with your image and how you portray yourself to other people. Let's move on to Taurus. Taurus, this is going to unfold in your spirituality house. A lot of you are going through a crisis right now. This crisis is questioning what you're believing in. Okay, that is what I'm seeing for many of you. And you are not showing this to the world. Of course not, because there are some sets of responsibilities that you still have and things that you're working on. Look at the two cards that fell out. We have the 5 of Hearts and the 7 of Hearts. Some of you, your heart has been broken by someone who is really close to you. And you're looking at this person and you're saying to yourself, why did they do this to me? You're still asking this question. I'm not sure that that's the right question to ask yourself, because the why right now isn't important. What's important is what they're showing you of what you dislike. 5 of Hearts. It's important that you identify what this is showing you about your situation right now and what you actually had to focus on protecting. Another part of you is realizing that you maybe let other people sort of walk all over you. That was a tough one to say, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because this situation has to do with heartbreak, you guys. It has to do with you giving a part of yourself and what it is that you offer. And for some of you, this will also have to do with some spiritual topics. You know, if you are some kind of healing coach, a spiritual leader of some sort, or if you are someone who is, you know, who got caught up in the wrong, maybe even religion, you might be someone who is realizing how much of yourself gets lost inside of this methodology. And that realization right now, you're putting together a bigger picture because it is attached to people who then see that there's a value that you're creating, and then they just go after that value. You know, they're like claiming it for themselves. You can't control that. What you can take a look at, you need to become stronger about the way in which that impacts you, that heartbreak, that thing that goes deep for you. That is what there is to take a look at for you. That's where the gold is at right now. The gold is at identifying what you make that mean about yourself. There's a lot of meaning behind it, because was it about the spiritual aspect of it, or is it now becoming about something that you feel like it was yours, but then you didn't claim it? Like, what's the story of that? You need to go a little bit deeper into it. You need to understand yourself a little bit better. And you need to really take a look at where you're also not communicating in a straightforward fashion with this other person. Like, yeah, you did that to me. My heart was broken. And maybe time to cut ties. Might even be time to experience a part in a version of yourself where you have spiritual boundaries. And spiritual boundaries have a lot to do with you saying absolutely not anymore, and you have to voice it. And that is where that Mars in Gemini is going to help you. For a lot of you, that Mars in Gemini is going to happen in your second house. This has to do with your work. This has to do with your productivity. This has to do with, you know, the time you're investing into things that you're building right now. You're making a lot of epiphanies. Also pay attention to some people in your life right now that sort of are in the picture, but you are not clear why they're in the picture. Like, these relationships, are they there to get something similar out of you? you want to pay attention to that, okay? I just said a lot, but these are the things that are coming up. And for you guys, it is really about getting more clear right now about where you're not protecting yourself enough and where you're placing too much meaning. And then that person's action comes in, and then you take yourself out because they did XYZ. It doesn't matter if they did it. Because if you stay more in a place where you master hurt and disappointment, because it's part of life, that's what's happening, you're going to start to see that these types of things are not going to phase you, because who you are as a person is so much more impactful than the stealing and the thievery of another person. Okay. That is what I'm seeing here for a lot of the Taurus. Okay. Let's move on to Gemini. Gemini, this moon is happening in your 11th house. This is your friends, the networks of people, okay? Your socializing aspect of life, but it also ties into goals, life goals, things that you are focusing on right now that you would like to achieve. But there are networking or friends or your role maybe within groups that is showing you where you get triggered because people react in a certain way. Aries is the reaction. And so let's see what the spiritual cards have in store for you. Your guidance. We're just shuffling until something falls out. There you go. Six of Spades. I think this is really interesting. A lot of this stuff has to do with jealousy, you guys. Okay? The Wands is the self. When we see six is a number of creation. 6 is a number of aesthetics. 6 is a number of making something, really good, making it aesthetically look good, making it look good, feel good. 6 is a number of you just working on developing yourself, but how you are receiving is really important now. I bring up jealousy because whatever you guys are going to observe over the next 2 weeks, I want you to point out to yourself over the next 2 weeks with this particular, Aries full moon energy in your 11th house. What do you notice about jealousy? Investigate a little bit more about the jealousy that is, going on around you, maybe within you. There is a point now where a lot of you are going to start to realize that the actions that you're taking, what are they fueled by? Because that Mars in Gemini is going to retrograde in your first house. That's you. That's your image. That's the way in which you communicate. And are you actually communicating everything there is to communicate? And are you actually asking the important questions when it comes to friends and groups? When somebody is challenging you, and this might come up, are you asking the right questions back? This is key. You might have to understand something about the topics of jealousy and the topics of comparison and the topics of where you're not thinking a little bit bigger, okay, about the common goal, because you're trying to maybe make something happen and somebody else inserts their energy into it and there's something wrong or there's always some nagging going on. These are types of things that could come up. I want you to challenge it. I want you to take a look at the subject of jealousy and comparison and where is it coming up? Is it coming up with somebody else? Are there people in your life that you sense that with? And are you asking them? Are you engaging them in the conversation and saying, I'm sensing XYZ. Let's talk about it. Why is this happening? These are the things that are going to be really important over the next 2 weeks. Let's move on to Cancer and Cancer rising. Yeah, your career, really important right now. Many of you are let me just say, okay, because I've got a lot of clients throughout the day that I'm, coaching, a lot of the Cancer energy right now. You guys are just so tired of like the stuff that's going on at work. And I hear you. Okay. If that is you, I hear you. And changes are coming, but these changes will have to do with you kind of moving yourself out of the way a little bit. There's a part of you that gets too caught up in what people in leadership are not doing. And okay, it's important, but you have gone over this a million times in your head. You've identified where they're not being responsible, where they're, overpowering you or the situation, or they're saying stuff that's not fair, following the policies. Those are the types of things that could come up. But guess what? Right now, what's really important is to draw your energy back a bit and understand what is bringing you happiness in your work. What is going to make you ultimately happy? What is it that you're going after? Because you guys, out of anybody, you are incredible when it comes to attracting the things that you're wanting, because you just feel it. And then bam, there it is. It happens for you guys. I can't explain this in a better way, but a lot of you have to really focus right now, especially over the next 2 weeks. Like, what is making you feel good in your job? The people might be the relationships you're taking a look at, or is it the moment like you go, you work, you feel like you've put the effort in, and there's like a reward that you get out of it, and then you feel comfortable with that. You feel like you feel good about yourself, and the stuff that you're creating, between work and even your home life is going to be pointed out here over the next 2 weeks for you to finally make some decisions where you're only going to apply for this particular job, or if you're not trying to get out of the job that you're in, that you're really going to focus on the quality of work that you're delivering, and you're going to focus a little bit less about noticing all the stuff that the others are not doing right now. Because guess what, all that stuff's going to change. It's going to change, especially over the next half year. You're going to start to realize some of those people that are not doing what they're meant to do, they're going to start to fizzle out. They will, because this energy that's coming is intense and it's final. Pluto is direct. Saturn is going to go direct. For you in your career right now, what's most important is that you really listen to your inner voice. If there's something that you're supposed to be doing, do it from you, right? That's your own intuition talking. That's your own guidance that's talking to you right now. It's going to come up, okay? And there's big possibilities attached to this if you take this invitation, and it's uncomfortable, okay? It doesn't feel good when you're starting to realize that, yeah, I should probably not do this anymore. Or I should probably not focus on this person anymore. I should probably not trust this particular coworker anymore, or this situation anymore, because like it's a dead end. That's the message. So the Two of Cups is focus on the things right now in your life that are making you really feel good, and focus on the things that you're trying to achieve, and then go make that happen right now, because you're going to get that intuitive hit. And when you do, it's time to go. It's time to go. Don't wait. Okay. That is the message. Because the last thing I want to say to you, for all Cancer and Cancer rising friends, that Mars in Gemini is going to make you really think about the meaning of everything. It's going to be about the meaning of your life. It's about the meaning of the big picture of your life and what you're trying to accomplish right now. And perhaps you thought all this time you had to aim in a particular direction with life goals, and those might change. Expect those to change over the next two weeks and on. Okay. So stay open. Stay open to any changes that you're trying to create. Okay. Let's move on to Leo and Leo rising. This is going to happen in your 9th house. So it's unfolding in your 9th house. What's the 9th house? Let's break it down. 9th house is philosophy. 9th house is your belief systems. But the 9th house also has a lot to do with you thinking outside of the box. Okay. You having things in your life that expand your life and add so much more value and knowledge to your life than just like this little thing that you're doing. So this has to do also with you communicating those beliefs. This has to also do with you not only communicating those beliefs, but also making it happen with other people. Relationships play a huge role right now because that Mars is in your 11th house. So right now, the focus is on strengthening your relationships, but the first and foremost relationship that needs to strengthen right now is who you are, okay? And your belief systems and communicating your belief systems and communicating your truth on a level as well. You might realize that there's a situation for some of you that are unfolding that has to do with a teacher or a coach or someone who taught you a particular skill set. You could realize that all this time you maybe, sometimes we do that. We have a teacher, we praise that teacher, we put that teacher up on a pedestal, but now it's time to not do that anymore. Now it's time to move on from that situation because there might be some weird things playing out right now with relationships where you start to realize people that you put up on a pedestal or people that you put up in your life and into a particular, point of view that that's not the truth anymore. Things are changing, the chapters are turning. And so it's a time to really follow your own. You might now realize that you are the teacher. Okay. You are the person that needs to step even bigger and bolder into what you're doing right now that are really important to you, ties into your beliefs, ties into the big picture of your life, ties into philosophies and methodologies, maybe even ties into something that you're trying to publish. You might try to publish something, right? The ninth house has to do with publications, has to do with you making that big, bold step. Could be a magazine, could be a book, could be something else that you're trying to publish. And this is the time to make that happen. And there are some triggers attached to it because maybe this whole time you had to justify, what you were doing, how you were doing. The nine of spades has to do with you changing your life now. And also, I want to say for a lot of you, this has to do with changing your habits, bringing some old things back, letting some old things go, okay, that were part of the bigger picture of the goals that you created for your life, for your journey, for your hobby, for your career, even. Whatever those things were, there's some things that worked really beautifully, and bringing those aspects back and those habits back into your life will pay off in a big way. And letting old habits go. What I mean by old habits is like identifying the things that like it's a waste of your time and you already know it. And this has to do with your environment because that full moon is going to take a look at your third house, the house of, the immediate environment, like things that you're doing every single day. And you're kind of putting your, mental energy into it. And, maybe it's time to cut those things out. Could be some form of social media communication, whatever this is that I'm talking about for you. It's time to let that thing go and making those necessary lifestyle changes and just realizing, right? It's go time now in a new direction and just making that decision and just sticking to it and knowing that there is a part of you. All you have to do here is to forgive yourself where you didn't give yourself enough permission because you had to learn. You had to learn something really important about other people that have taught you, that have come before you. You had to learn something very specific about that. And that has to do with that things change. And another thing that I want to point out for a lot of you is you might realize that you see a pattern play out with another person who is a teacher in your life or who is someone very significant in your life. And you see that that is not how you want to do things. All this time you thought maybe that's where you were headed, but something in their journey, something in the chapter of their life that they're going through right now is communicating to you what you should be avoiding. And so that is coming with that eclipse season, that drawing the boundary, making yourself feel like that has value, drawing the boundary around it, and then putting the efforts in so that that thing in their chapter will not be how your chapter will go or life will unfold. So that's going to be really important. All right, moving on to Virgo. Virgo, this is going to play out in your 8th house. I'm laughing because all the Virgos right now, including myself, I'm not a Virgo rising, but I can just tell you we have been working hard. Working hard on understanding what we need to move away from in our lives, okay? This has to do with things that impact our psyche, things that are ungrounded, things that, shit that has happened from the past with, especially with other people, attachments that have been created. And these are the final details, right? This 5 of hearts has to do with the final details that you're going to be working out in regards to attachments, okay? This might be a physical attachment, and it might also be a non-physical attachment. Could be those two together as well. But a lot of you will have to work out, like, you might be attached to specific items in your life. Items, I mean habits or patterns or people that are attached to this. And there's also money attached to this that give you this sense of feeling good, but it's just not true. And you are identifying what that is now. And you're also starting to see where you're holding yourself back. A lot of you are so incredible when it comes to understanding what you need to, how you need to do it. But what holds you back oftentimes is your fear of not being able to live responsibilities out the way that they should, or you're afraid of something different because you don't know how you need to master it. A lot of you are right now learning that this is where your energy goes out. This is where your energy goes off balance, even, because it's all about you understanding where you're most powerful, and then also the aspects of your part that are not powerful. And what I mean by that is this attachments that are being created. This could be an attachment to a person. This could be an attachment that is most likely happening behind the scenes. It could even be with food. It could be with, things that are, that seem really small, but you are attached to this, or you're even attached to a particular way of thinking. And this then also ties into money making activity. This ties into value in your life. And this is something that seems so small, but it's a huge thing. It's going to be illuminated over the next 2 weeks. And a lot of you will have to pay attention to this, because this is a time to gain happiness back and understand that if you're attached to this thing, it's right now being pointed out to you because you shouldn't be attached to it anymore. You should let that thing go because it's overpowering you. Okay. It could also be a particular feeling attachment. What I mean by that is something or relationship dynamic where a certain person is only, like, that relationship only goes so far. This could be another thing that's being, pointed out. So pay attention to those things. The 5 of hearts basically is saying it's time to create that emotional change that's necessary. You know exactly what it is. You are going to know exactly what it is if you didn't know up until this point, because the next 2 weeks is going to point it out. And you'll be so liberated when you understand this. Why am I not doing this instead of this? Why am I focusing on this relationship and this outcome when I don't even care? It ties into what you deeply care for. Okay. And whatever this attachment is, it is a distraction. It's because a part of you might be fearful to up level because you don't know what the other side of it looks like. You're never going to know until you understand and take the action towards it. Okay. That is for all of the Virgo and Virgo risings. Let's move on to Libra. I'm going to take a sip of my decaf coffee. Libra. All right, Libra. Libra rising, happening in your 7th house. This has to do a lot with your needs being met, okay? With relationship dynamics, we have the 6 of hearts. This also has to do with some behavior that you have around relationships. I know the Six of Hearts here speaks to something super simple, but it's so powerful. What makes you feel good in your life? And then when it makes you feel good, what I mean by that is like certain actions that you take, you feel really good. When you take those actions, then everything else sort of seems to be in balance. But when you don't take those actions, and it could be two things, could be three things, could be even one thing that you're doing, okay, on the day to day, when you don't do that thing, when you don't check in with yourself, when you don't have that strategy on mind, then your relationships get impacted by it. And then there is a impatience that arises. Pay attention to that. This is the key for you guys. Everything does not matter right now, okay? You paying attention to how you take care of yourself is so important because that is how you show up in your relationships. And this is the key thing to pay attention to. Super short message for you guys. When you feel good, things around you feel good. When you don't feel good, what do you do? What's that impatience thing that you do? Then it just makes you feel not good for the rest of the day. Why is that? Identify that. The next 2 weeks is going to be key for that because everything else from that starts to move on into productivity. That's the conversation you're going to engage into next. And so right now it is about wrapping up having that behavior with yourself that is more important because that's how you're going to show up in relationships and you're mad in return. What's in the way of that? Once you know what's in the way, that's your goal, Libra. Let's move on to Scorpio and Scorpio rising. This is going to be happening in your 6th house. My goodness, you guys are busy. I don't mind this full moon in the 6th house. I feel like this full moon in the 6th house it can be a little bit frustrated, but essentially there is a lot going on and you guys are just, there's a part of you that's learning how to just really rely on your own ideas, on your own thoughts, on you doing things the way that you think is right. Lots of lifestyle changes, habitual changes, organizational changes, a lot of things that a lot of you might even be caught up in a project or a situation or a circumstance right now that require for you to investigate a lot on your own, find out things on your own, organize things on your own. And so you're asking yourself, like, when is this coming to an end? Well, it's right around the corner. 10 of spades. This is going to be a time over the next 2 weeks when you're going to start to realize, like, okay, you had to go through this moment because what else is in your 6th house? It is Jupiter. Let me just pop the chart back up. Okay. So Jupiter is in your 6th house, and Jupiter is about to come out of Aries and then move back into your 5th house. This is going to be a different conversation for you. But in the 6th house, Jupiter has been expanding and helping you and your skills around how quickly you can make things happen, how quickly you can actually, sort of invent yourself to expand very important projects or sets of responsibilities that require for you to show up differently more than you ever have before. Like, you may realize that the last year has really shaped you into understanding how to manage your time, what's important about your time, your role within that, who you are at this time, has changed so much due to the sets of responsibilities that you've taken on. And these sets of responsibilities have now sort of come to a point, a culmination point, especially over the next 2 weeks, where you begin to realize, wow, I view what it is that I'm capable of creating and doing and accomplishing in the day so differently. And there is a moment, an aha moment, because you connect to a part of yourself that has a lot to do now with what drives you to get that thing done and what your beliefs are and what the ultimate end goal is for you when you have those sets of responsibilities on in your hands, and you have to kind of accomplish a lot of things throughout the day. Like, who do you need to be in order to make that happen? There is like an epiphany and a wisdom that comes through, and it goes deeper because you start to begin to see that some relationships are really showing up in your life, and who those people are becoming very important. And those people will actually start to become even closer. You will start to become closer with those people because there is sort of a very important sort of mission that the both of you share. And I say both of you, could be more than one. Okay. Your Venus in Libra and the Sun in Libra, that's your 12th house. This is you starting to see that, yeah, you right now, who you are and what you are creating in your life and all the work that you are putting in on the daily also ties directly into the spiritual aspect of your life and how you view the meaning of your relationships. This is going to be a big time. Watch out for some people who I feel like there's some relationships right now that are going to be communicating some important things. Some of it will have to do with impacts of money over the next 2 weeks. This is going to come out over the next 2 weeks. Some of it will have to do with impacts of money, things that how money was spent or how money was dealt with. This is going to come up. It will also impact the way in which you view people under distress. Okay, when somebody is in a stressful situation, what they're capable of doing and what they're capable of overlooking, this will be a very big thing as well. And it may not be so personally attached to you, but when you hear the story, it will just remind you of why you are even the way that you are. It will give you that new sense of like, yes, this is something I'm going to continue to do. I'm going to continue being this way, especially around certain people. Like you had some intuition around certain people, and it's going to get validated here. Okay. One more thing that comes up. There are some people that are going to do and say things over the next 2 weeks. It will not be the time to react to it. It will not be the time to deal with those situations. You will have to come back to it. And you will come back to it, okay? Not until actually the end of November, December. Right now may not be the time to deal with it, and you will get that feeling, that intuition as well. Okay, so that's what I'm seeing for Scorpio. Let's move on to Sagittarius. Okay, Sagittarius, you had big changes in group relationships, groups that you're part of. We've talked about this in your individual horoscopes. This particular full moon is unfolding in your 5th house. A lot of you took a risk. This risk was attached to a cutting something out of your life. Okay. Now where you're at is you are having to have a lot more faith in yourself more than ever. Okay. Also, I just wanted to ask real quick, can you guys hear me? I want to make sure you guys can hear me. If anybody is in the chat, please let me know if you can hear me. I just realized my mic is doing this weird thing. And I want to make sure that you guys can hear me. Let's see here. If anybody is in the chat, let me know if you can hear me. Could you imagine if this entire time you guys could not hear me? That would suck. Okay. I think you can. I just wanted to make sure. That was really interesting that that came up during your reading, Sagittarius. Okay. So this is happening in your 5th house, the house fulfillment. Okay. So right now, a lot of you are in this moment of expressing yourself very differently. Okay. You're going to learn over the next 2 weeks what it is that you need to focus on. Okay. You're going to be expressing yourself very differently. We have the 8 of Cups and we have the Queen of Diamonds. There is a sense of confidence that is going to start to come back. A lot of you were maybe a little bit unsure of the decisions that you're making because you didn't know. Once you cut this thing out of your life that really meant a lot to you, how are you going to replace this thing? Well, there's important conversations that are going to start to unfold over the next 2 weeks. These conversations will have to do with people, new people, even some people, some people who are acquaintances who will turn into friends, some people in your life who will begin to help you understand what is really important to focus on with this next step that you're taking. And there's a lot of negotiation that's going to go back and forth. Now, none of this stuff is going to be solid until January. I just want to say that. It's going to take a lot of conversation. It's going to take a lot of back and forth. And there will be, if you're part of an organization or a group, there will be changes that the company or the organization will go through. And you will benefit from these changes. But at first, you have to sort of let things play out. So whatever goal you're setting right here to bring more happiness into your life or to do something that you're really passionate about, it's going to take a moment. Okay. It's going to take a couple months because there are other players that are attached to it. And that stuff has to kind of sort itself out because there are some people that might leave the company. They're going to get replaced. And then the timing of it all is going to come together. And your moment is going to come in January. So whatever you're doing right now, it's just about developing and strengthening your relationship dynamics and figuring out like your role within this new group dynamic or the social reputation or this, friendship circle. There are some things that are going to change and you just have to kind of navigate in a way where you don't jump to conclusions, you don't react too impatiently or try to do something. Just set a minor goal and stick to it and kind of stick to your own and focus on what you're passionate about and focus on the conversations and the opportunities when the conversations arise, what you want to say to another person to let them know, hey, I'm interested in this project, or I want to be a part of this, or I want to negotiate about this. I need to have a conversation. Those moments are going to come up. But right now, within the next 2 weeks, it's all about letting things sort of unfold, letting things click into place, accepting the choices that you've made, and realizing you're going to get validation that where you are at now is the right place to be. Okay. Some of you might go back and forth a little bit on questioning that. So that is for Sagittarius, Sun and Rising. Let's move on to Capricorn. Capricorn. This is unfolding in your 4th house. So many changes in your home life right now. And look at the card that turned in the deck. We have the 10 of Hearts. So right now, you guys are reaching a very important moment with family dynamics, okay? Family dynamics. There are some important relationships in family, or if it's not your family, people that you consider your family. There's some very important moments that are going to come up here where you begin to realize that there are some solutions, okay? Some family dynamics are very challenging. They're not the preferred kind of relationship that you like to have. There is a sense of openness that was lacking, is what I'm trying to say here. And that sense of openness is going to come back. There is a necessary conversation a lot of you are going to have. And this conversation will be about, especially about the past, okay? You will have to talk about the past. You will have to cover why things happened the way that they did. But your whole role within all of that is to speak what really hurt you. Okay. When you say what really hurt you and you don't shy away from that, because there's a part of you I see here, because that Chiron is in that, 4th house with this full moon in Aries, that is being illuminated where you are maybe afraid to show certain aspects of yourself. Maybe you are kind of noticing that you're lacking a level of assertion. Like you need to assert yourself. You need to assert yourself. You need to share why certain things have hurt you. And what you realize when you do that during this period over the next 2 weeks, if you do it, is you begin to realize you actually do not have to hold on to grudges the way that you thought. Like there's like this thing that happens that the moment you say the thing that you were afraid to say, that like that pain appears. I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like this will have to do with that. Now, for some of you, this will tie into the way in which you're spending your time between home and family, and you might have to come to a point where you have to choose. There might be a quality versus quantity type of situation going on. You're spending too much time at work. You're spending too much time away from the house. You have to stay at your house a little bit more, or you have to pay attention to certain family dynamics and relationships that need your attention at this time. And so this is going to become a very important conversation. But whatever this is, Capricorn, you are solving the issue. You are going to solve this. It's going to work out. That's what I'm seeing here for you. Okay. All right. Let's see. We're moving on to Aquarius. Let me pop the chart back up. Aquarius, Sun, and Rising. So for you guys, this is happening in your third house. So what I see for many of you is you are at this point where you have taken on, or you have been accepted into a new program, or you've taken on a new project that requires a lot of work in the now, some kind of studying or investigating, some kind of, I want to say I don't want to say journaling, but like a written format of a project could come up here as well. And it could also be a time when you start to realize that your environment has to change, or certain things about your environment are frustrating and you need to change things up. Could be your office, the way in which you are sitting. There's things that you need to do in your environment that need to change, and relationships become a very important focal point here, because you may have to reach out to people who have a little bit of a broader idea or a better idea about what needs to change. So there is a frustration that comes up here. There might also be a moment where you feel like you want to take faster action, you want to become more efficient, but you don't know how to go about it. And this is the time to really focus on getting some outside help. This is really, really important for many of you right now, because you have to identify how you need to go about things. And you may have to learn different systems in order to do it. And there might be sort of a gap or something that's missing. And so this will come up over the next 2 weeks or so. And it starts now. It starts you realizing, okay, you need to take charge of this aspect of your life. And this will also eventually start to help you in the way in which you think. I can't believe it. Look at the cards. The way in which you think. We have the Ace of Clubs. The clubs are, if you know nothing about this card system reading, the clubs are a lot about thoughts. And so you're going to start to really get down to the bottom of how to streamline your thoughts, your process, your work. Communication will be a part of this as well. You will start to begin to realize that the way in which you were thinking was keeping you stuck in this place that was not so preferred. It was kind of maybe slow, at some levels, painful. Like you were just in this place where you felt like stuck. But now there's a fresh energy that comes into it. And what really becomes better here as a result of it is that you start to realize, okay, where in your life you stop yourself and you get caught up with things that you feel like you are loyal to. But no, you don't have to stay fixated on that subscription or that person or this method that you learned. You need to learn how to, at some level, know, okay, this program got me this far, but now I need something else. And that is the learning and the bigger wisdom you're going to gain from it. Now, for some of you, this will have to do also in general in the way in which you're thinking. The third house is a busy house, you guys. There's a lot going on. You got to make things happen, and you have to make them happen fast. And the reason you are making them happen fast at this time is because there's opportunities attached to it, or there's things that you want to move out of the way. And they're annoying. 5 of Diamonds can be a very annoying card in the sense that there's a lot of stuff that you need to focus on, right? Like a lot of details that you have to work out. There's a lot of thought that you have to give to this particular project or this particular project. And it could be that you have several pieces of content that needs to get out, or you have several things that need to get communicated or back and forth between you and other people. And so the wisdom behind it is that you realize, okay, now is the time for you to understand how you need to feel in order to approach this aspect of your life. And there's some things you can't control. That's the big message here. There's some things you absolutely cannot control. It is out of your control, and you need to sort of let go of the idea of what it was and move into a new space of creating a new workflow, a new way of thinking, a new way of communicating, a new way of handling, especially your immediate environment, the best way that you can. Okay. And then learning from the day to day, focusing on moment to moment. This is going to be really important for you guys. All right. We covered every single sign. If you've made it so far to this portion of this episode, thank you so much for hanging out. I really appreciate you guys. I hope that you got everything you needed out of today's reading, and I will see you back here in my next episode. Bye.